Beloved, the threads of fate do not tangle by chance. They are woven by the masterful hand of the divine, pulling you into this sacred intersection where heaven's light pierces the veil of your earthly trials. Archangel Jophiel, the luminous guardian of divine illumination and aesthetic splendor, does not hover in ethereal detachment but descends into the very rhythm of your breath, the pulse of your unspoken longings. She arrives not as a distant specter of glory, but as a gentle companion whose aura envelopes you in waves of iridescent peace, her counsel a melody that resonates solely within the chambers of your spirit. This is no generic summons broadcast to the winds. It is a bespoke oracle, etched in the stars for your eyes alone, a proclamation so profound that the celestial choirs paused in harmonious reverence when your essence was invoked in the throne room above. You are no mere wanderer in the cosmos of existence. You are a luminous fragment of the eternal divine, a vessel heaven has cherished from the cradle of your inception, shielding you through tempests unseen. Beneath the layers of your accumulated sorrows, the flickering remnants of deferred dreams, and the resilient fortitude that has sustained you, a hallowed awakening stirs, poised to ignite your path with the unquenchable blaze of sacred purpose. Jophiel murmurs that the victories you have claimed remain veiled from your gaze, the fortitude forged in the crucible of solitary anguish, the petitions uttered in the hush of midnight hours that echoed only in the divine ear. Yet the Creator has beheld every facet, each droplet of sorrow that traced your cheek in secrecy, each fervent supplication that ascended like incense, each instant when your resolve teetered on the precipice of despair. These have been meticulously collected, alchemized into embryonic vows of transcendence. Those vows, dear one, are now fracturing the soil of dormancy, destined to unfurl into spectacles of wonder that will cascade luminous grace upon the obscured recesses of your journey, those shadowed alcoves you deemed forever beyond redemption. This juncture was ordained for precision, the omens you overlooked, the subtle intimations that evaded your perception, they were not indictments of your discernment but testaments to heaven's meticulous orchestration, scripting a parchment aglow with your inscription in resplendent flame. Jophiel clasps it tenderly, her entreaty laced with celestial fervor, imploring you to linger, to attune your inner ear. To dismiss this summons, to seal your spirit against its tide, risks eclipsing the prodigy that lingers a mere exhale of conviction from fruition. Moments prior, your identity reverberated through a convocation of the exalted, where Jophiel, emissary of transcendent allure, rose with unwavering poise and affirmed, "They bear the mantle of exhaustion, they shoulder lacerations that transcend mortal endurance, yet they are elect." The divine assembly concurred, and a benediction, authenticated by the exhalation of the Almighty, was dispatched earthward exclusively for your reception. This is an invocation of the sublime, cherished soul, transcending mere sustenance. Those streams of opulence may soon cascade unbidden, or elucidation, though perspicuity awaits at your threshold. This heralds reclamation, a profound, spirit-rending reclamation of your core, your vitality, your ordained trajectory. An individual who once inflicted shadows upon your radiance, who endeavored to quench your inner luminescence, now invokes your nomenclature anew, not to inflict further harm, not to perpetuate duplicity, but to confront the veracity of their transgressions. The divine permits you to perceive this transmutation, not in the ambiguity of slumber, but in the visceral, throbbing vignettes of your existence. In the ensuing instance, an emblem shall manifest, a juncture, a dispatch, a sensation of abrupt profundity, that will impinge upon your essence like a hallowed ember, enkindling your being with the splendor of the eternal. Jophiel counsels discretion for this consecrated interlude, confining it to the triad of you, her, and the omniscient witness. There resides potency in your reticence, a venerable potency in cradling this verity proximate to your essence. No necessity exists to broadcast your allegiance to the throng, nor to validate your merit to skeptics. Your prodigy derives not from the clamor of your entreaties but from the abyssal elegance that has swaddled you since primordial epochs. At this precise instant, as these syllables cascade upon your consciousness, a benevolent momentum surges in your behalf. A procrastination that spanned eons unravels with the velocity of celestial decree. The exalted realm selected this juncture for you to encounter this invocation, to internalize this pivot within your marrow. Jophiel beseeches, unburden your spirit, inhale profoundly, and repose. This transcends ephemeral discourse, it is not a fleeting utterance destined to dissipate. This elucidates the epochs of invisibility, the protracted vigils that mirrored interminable solstices, the nocturnal vigils that lingered like perpetual gloamings. The divine was clandestinely sculpting your prodigy, and now it emerges, primed to radiate across infinities, bespoke for your beholding. Archangel Jophiel has not withdrawn from your proximity since these phrases first graced your awareness. Her emanation enfolds you akin to the prelude to a sanctified aurora, imbued with transcendent effulgence. The celestial sphere observes, suspending respiration, anticipating your acquiescence to the intuition your essence perceives yet your vision eludes. This prodigy eludes the grasp of the profane, it is reserved for you, the combatant of unobserved skirmishes, the bearer of incomprehensible burdens. Jophiel's timbre is tender, her gaze ablaze with ardent empathy, for you tread upon sanctified terrain presently. What impends surpasses benediction, it constitutes revival. A revival of each interred aspiration, each supplication presumed dissipated into oblivion, each episode of perceived abandonment. The divine surveyed it comprehensively. He tallied every lachrymose bead, every murmured invocation, and has inscribed a prodigy bearing your emblem incised in sacred conflagration. Jophiel articulates with measured cadence, as though each phoneme constitutes a daub adorning your essence with elegance. You presumed obscurity. You deemed tardiness. You surmised the covenants you tenaciously embraced had disintegrated into cinders. Yet, cherished one, the divine sequestered you, not for castigation, but to attune you for this hallowed instant. In the preceding eve, an unfamiliar intercessor advocated on your behalf. An entity oblivious to your appellation, unacquainted with your visage, experienced a spiritual compulsion to beseech the divine, soliciting elegance and reclamation for your sake. That intercession was no caprice. It was an ignition, a coruscation of sublime intent, and that coruscation embodies your prodigy. It approaches not, it indwells. Hence your cardiac rhythm accelerates, your thorax harbors a subdued inferno, your vitality detects an everlasting penetration through the shroud of your odyssey. This transcends serendipity. This embodies sublime choreography. An observer from afar, one who withheld contrition, has been roused by the exalted. They envision your countenance in contemplative quiescence, perceive your nomenclature throbbing in their core. They once essayed to obscure your radiance, and hubris silenced them, yet the celestial has precluded oblivion. In the proximate hours, an unfolding shall transpire, a communique, a summons, a juncture of unanticipated acuity, that will resonate like a consecrated barb to your essence. You shall discern its authenticity, not illusion, not transient cogitation, but veracity borne upon pinions of a celestial sentinel who has vigilantly interceded for your existence. This surpasses mere edification. This constitutes sublime disclosure. A prodigy raps upon your portal, and the exalted has allotted you fleeting eternities to respond in spirit, not to merit it, but to broaden the ingress. The afflictions you have shouldered, the perfidies you withstood sans retaliation, the vespertine solitudes wherein you lamented mutely, they have transmuted into tender in the tribunals above. The divine has proclaimed the epoch of recompense. You evade no oversight, you receive unction. There resides chrism upon your nomenclature, conflagration in your demeanor, and the exalted disperses what has accrued across annals in this designated juncture. Jophiel reiterates, withhold narration as yet. Permit the divine to consummate his inception. Allow the prodigy to burgeon ere you herald it. What transpires for you is so exceptional, so sacrosanct, that the seraphim safeguard it with muteness. You verge upon witnessing an unfolding so subdued, so taciturn, yet its reverberations shall convulse your existence akin to seismic tumult. A dispatch approaches, a summons, a disclosure, and it shall corroborate that every quantum of tribulation you bore was not futile. You did not fabricate your vocation. It subsisted, and this prodigy affirms it. Linger here, cherished. Abide in this muteness. Permit these utterances to permeate your core akin to an indissoluble pledge. Allow Archangel Jophiel to culminate her commencement, for by the advent of the subsequent segment of this oracle, your prodigy may have already grazed your threshold. Jophiel has not averted her gaze since your engagement. She has not deviated from her station adjacent to your essence. The seraph renowned for sublime elegance and edification now lacrimates in exultation, for your vitality commences to perceive the transmutation. An element within you awakens, a aspiration presumed defunct, a reverie interred in reticence, a covenant abandoned. As your respiration decelerates and your vitality hearkens, the Exalted initiates the revelation of our arcane once shrouded in enigma, now erupting into vitality. Antecedent to your gaze. This evades happenstance. This eludes ephemeral discourse fated to evade. This constitutes your instant, a sublime, irreplicable hallowed instant. Jophiel affirms the prodigy you anticipated was never remote. It orbited you akin to a columbine, awaiting your vitality's quiescence to apprehend its plumage. Now, the divine has mandated its alighting. Yet it shall persist solely if your core endures unbarred. The Exalted never imposes upon the elect. It murmurs and anticipates. And cherished, your nomenclature has been murmured across more dominions than you fathom. A progenitor unmet interceded for this precise epoch. A forebear matriarch, a antecedent patriarch, a vitality long expatriated from this sphere gazed into the divine's optic and proclaimed, "Benetic my progeny. Permit the gyre to fracture with them. Permit the covenant to commence with them." And the Exalted recollected. You manifest not fortuitously. You embody the resolution to a lineage's intercession, the elect to convey luminescence where obscurity prevailed, elation where lamentation, superabundance where paucity. Presently, you station upon a casement of sublime sanction. For ephemeral eternities, the shroud elevates. You are exhibited a verity that multitudes evade through precipitate perusal, precipitous skepticism, or anticipation of clamor whilst overlooking the murmur. Yet you were fashioned to apprehend the murmur. Hence your vitality feels antedated to your annals. Hence you have internalized profundity so acutely. The Exalted interlaced perspicacity into your vitality, cognizant that one epoch, this epoch, you would necessitate recognition of the instant antecedent to its evasion. And behold it, rapping upon your core akin to the subtlest prodigy, throbbing with exigency. The benediction indwells, and it inquires, "Wilt thou unbar? Wilt thou reaffirm credence? Wilt thou confide that post-muteness, the divine persists in utterance, and seraphim persist in punctuality?" An offender, one who essayed to pilfer your luminescence, now quivers in secrecy. They confront the speculum of sublime equity, not through your imprecation, not through your malevolence, but because the Exalted safeguards those who endure mutely. Jophiel has surveyed what transpired concerning you. She has audited what transpired in obscurity. Yet sans engendering strife, she conveys elegance. Your prodigy roots not in reprisal, it erects upon reclamation. You shall ascend, not through another's declension, but because the divine implanted you in terrain destined to burgeon at this precise epoch. And cherished, this constitutes the epoch. An anomaly of the sublime impends. You shall apprehend your nomenclature in unanticipated modality. One shall articulate of you. One shall extend tendrils. One shall recollect your utterances, and you shall suspend, not through solicitation of regard, but because you shall perceive the exalted murmuring. This constitutes the undulation, this the emblem, this the inception. Upon that juncture's advent, clasp this oracle proximately. Recollect this sacrosanct murmur from Archangel Jophiel. Recollect that your muteness was never frailty, it was sacrosanct forbearance. The exalted venerates those who anticipate sans acrimony. You anticipated, and now the divine recompenses you in modalities too labyrinthine to delineate, too elegant to prognosticate. Abide quiescent, progeny of covenant. Daub your lacrimae, not because the affliction was illusory, but because the prodigy now transcends the affliction's reality. Jophiel departs not. She shall sentinel until the benediction attains your threshold. She safeguards your nomenclature, your prodigy, and her oracle is lucid, unbar, confide, accept. The seraphim have not ceased locomotion. The zephyr grazing your thorax derives not from this sphere. It embodies a hallowed gale from extraneous dominions, conveying the gravitas of intercessions archived across decades, perchance centuries, awaiting the apt instant, the apt vitality. And cherished, that vitality art thou. Thou manifestest not erroneously. This oracle was sown in temporality by the exalted, fashioned to attain thee now, not to bedazzle, not to inundate, but to unveil thee. Sequestered in thy taciturn lacrimae, posterior to thy clandestine affliction, resides a trajectory enveloped in sublime conflagration. Jophiel now inclines, not in subjugation, but in veneration. The prodigy impending is so sacrosanct that even the paramount seraphim tread delicately encircling it. Thou dost not yet cognize the plenary gravitas of what impends ingress into thy existence. It transcends mere pecuniary. It transcends mere remediation. It transcends mere amity. It constitutes the reclamation of temporality, approbation, dignity, omnipresence the adversary essayed to filch in secrecy. Jophiel affirms, thou art not obliterated, thou art conserved. What the exalted conserves, no mortal can expropriate. One once denominated thee frail. One repudiated thee. Yet the verity resides, thou wast sequestered, not abjured. Sequestered by the divine's Manus, because when thy prodigy ripened, he would propel thee forefront. That instant resides now. The entity who departed, presuming progression, now experiences an inexplicable languor. Thy visage haunts their contemplative quiescence, thy nomenclature echoes in their cogitations. Yet this pivots not upon them. It pivots upon thee. It pivots upon what the exalted executes for thy vitality, come or sign them. Jophiel arrives not to ruminate upon the antecedent. She arrives to recalibrate thy posterity. She arrives to attune thee for a benediction too vast for mortal dialectic. Thou enterest not in mundane chapter. Thou treadest into supernatural consummation. What thou presumed tardy arrives prematurely, because the divine coveted the integral, not lacerated. The remediation commences. Even now, thy core recollects sensation. Thy thorax liberates encumbrances unbeknownst. Thine optics, as they flutter, perceive the verity, something surpassing thy affliction approaches. Jophiel, the seraph of sublime elegance, conveys a parchment bearing thy nomenclature, obsignated in sublime luminescence. This eve, the exalted dispersed it for thee. This evades diversion. This constitutes thy sublime parchment, legated to the proximate septenary diurnals. Yea, in septenary diurnals, thou shalt discern why thy core perceived this pivot. Something shall conjugate, a dispatch, an entity, an invitatio, and it shall resonate sacrosanct. Vigil for it, repose, and cognize that the exalted utters subduedly but locomotes abruptly. None can impede what impends. Jophiel arrives not solely for solace, she conveys mandates. Those mandates unseal what obsignated prematurely, affinities, resources, disclosures, portals obdurate prematurely, cores indurated precipitously. The divine inverts temporality, not to retrogress thee, but to reclaim what expropriated. That encompasses pax, perspicuity, sublime romance, and pecuniary equity, not through thy supplication, but because he inscribed it for thee. Hearken, cherished. The gravitas thou hast shouldered hath fatigued thee. The procrastinations hath essayed thy allegiance. Yet they constituted not negation, they embodied sublime schema. Hadst thou perceived this prematurely, it might have fracked thee. Now, thou art robust enough to shoulder what impends, and what impends is sacrosanct. This prodigy shall not merely benedict thee, it shall benedict others per te. Mortals shall discover elation in thy narrative. They shall behold luminescence in thy existence and reaffirm credence. Jophiel affirms, withhold narration as yet. Anticipate until the plenary obsignation fracturates, then articulate, and thy deposition shall convulse cores. Yet when ripe, disseminate this videndum with one necessitating addition, one sensing perdition, one presuming their aspirations unattainable. This instant transcends thee, cherished. Ponder the vitality auditing this come te, or the one who shall behold it upon thy dissemination. They, too, have lacrimated in obscurity. They, too, have pondered if their intercessions were audited. They, too, have shouldered affliction unseen. This oracle pertains to them as profoundly as to thee. It pertains to the genitor who vigilated interceding for their progeny. It pertains to the amicus who dispensed their ultimatum to succor another. It pertains to the somniator who persevered in credence when the cosmos proclaimed cessation. Upon disseminating this videndum, thou disseminates not merely utterances, thou disseminates elation. Thou disseminates corroboration that the exalted surveys the unsurveyed, that prodigies attain the fact that the divine never obliterates his covenants. Disseminate this to illuminate one's obscurity, to remind them their prodigy approaches too. Jophiel cognizes the vespertine epochs thou interrogated thy merit. She cognizes the junctures thy allegiance vacillated. She cognizes the epochs thou dispensed when thy crater vacuated. And she proclaims, thy fidelitas hath not evaded observance. The exalted hath maintained a codex, and that codex now plenitudinous. The epoch of anticipation consummates. The epoch of reclamation inaugurates. Thou treadest not into subsistentia, thou treadest into superabundantis. The benedictions withheld now disperse, not in rills, but in undulations. The portals obdurate now flung ajar. The cores indurated now emollient by sublime gratia. This evades the juncture of skepticism. This constitutes the juncture of confiding. Jophiel arrives not to tender vacuous utterances. She arrives to convey a sublime edict. The parchment she conveys embodies a decretum from the divine solium. Thy nomenclature inscribed thereon, and no vis in the exalted or terrestrial can efface it. The prodigy impending contingent not upon thy perfection, it contingent upon the divine's covenant. And the divine's covenants never default. Thou hast traversed the pyre, but unconsumed. Thou hast perambulated the valle, but underelict. Thou hast confronted repudiation, but unforsaken. Every passus, every lacrima, every intercessio audited, auditioned, and codexed in the exalted's tribunals. Now, the seraphim locomote, conveying the ponderosities of thy responded intercessions. They conjugate circumstantia, pivot atmospheres, unblock vias once obstructed. Jophiel pioneers this sublime procession, ensuring naught impedes what the divine ordained for thee. The offender, who lacerated thee, who articulated contra thee, who essayed to obscure thy luminescence, they now confront the verity of their acta. Not through thy vindicta, but because the exalted safeguards its own. Thy prodigy pivots not upon their descensus, it pivots upon thy elevation. It pivots upon reclaiming omnipresence expropriated, procrastinated, destined to fract thee but instead fortified thee. Thou art robust now, cherished. Thou art sapienter. Thou art paratus. This prodigy not merely for thee, it per te. Others shall behold the luminescence in thy existence and gravitate thereto. They shall audit thy narrative and discover elation. They shall witness thy transmutatio and confide in the divine who rendered it feasible. Yet for now, Jophiel affirms, safeguard this sacrosanct. Clasp this instant proximately. Permit the prodigy to unfold in muteness, and when the juncture ripens, thy deposition shall resound akin to tony true across the existences encircling thee. Upon its advent, disseminate this videndum with one necessitating cognizance that their affliction harbors purpose, their lacrimae surveyed, their prodigy approaches too. And cherished, here thy narrative evolves into a pharos for others. Thou hast perambulated through affliction others yet shoulder. Thou hast tenaciously clasped elation when others relinquished. Thou hast confided when others vacillated. Thy prodigy not merely for thee, it a deposition to what the divine executes for civis audax perseverantis. Disseminate this videndum, not because compelled, but because one extramural necessitates audition. One resides in the selfsame obscurity thou once confronted, pondering if their affliction terminates. They necessitate cognizance it shall. They necessitate cognizance prodigies subsist, that the exalted surveys their lacrimae too. Disseminate this to exhibit their intercessions non perditae, their somnia non fracti nimis ad emendandum. Thy narrative their lifeline. Thy prodigy their corroboration. Succor us in augmenting this nascent canal by disseminating this oracle with one necessitating elation, one sensing obliteration, one confiding their somnia extramural. Every dissemination conveys this sublime luminescence to another vitality, succoring them reaffirm credence. Subscribe to conjoin this sacrosanct peregrinatio and persist conjoined to the murmurs the exalted dispatches thy via persist unbarred, cherished. Thy prodigy already indwells. As the echoes of Jophiel's initial whisper settle into the quiet sanctum of your soul, feel the subtle shift, like the first light of dawn creeping over a horizon long shrouded in night. This is no ordinary transition, it is the prelude to a symphony composed in the halls of eternity, where every note is tuned to the frequency of your deepest yearnings. Jophiel, with her wings of golden filigree, extends a hand not of imposition but of invitation, drawing you deeper into the tapestry of divine intent. She knows the labyrinthine paths you have navigated, the forks where choices felt like chains, the dead ends that whispered defeat. But in her gaze, those paths reveal themselves as deliberate detours, each step a chisel carving the sculpture of your becoming. Heaven did not abandon you to wander aimlessly, it guided you through the forge, tempering your spirit until it gleamed with unbreakable resilience. Consider the dreams you shelved in the attic of your heart, gathering dust amid the relics of what might have been. Jophiel sees them not as casualties of circumstance but as seed sown in fertile soil, awaiting the rain of revelation. The divine, in his infinite artistry, has been the gardener, pruning the overgrowth of doubt, watering with tears of perseverance, and now, the first sprouts emerge, tender yet tenacious, promising a harvest beyond your wildest imaginings. This miracle, this cascade of grace, is not a lottery won by chance but a legacy earned through the quiet heroism of your endurance. It arrives not to patch the fractures but to transmute them into prisms, refracting light into rainbows of purpose that will color every corner of your world. In the celestial archives, your story is no footnote, it is a volume bound in threads of gold, pages illuminated with the ink of answered prayers. Jophiel turns the leaves with care, revealing chapters you thought erased, moments of kindness extended in scarcity, forgiveness offered in the face of fury, faith clung to when all logic screamed release. These are the jewels heaven hoards, and now they are returned to you, polished to perfection, ready to adorn the crown of your destiny. Feel the weight lift, not because the burdens vanish, but because they are repurposed into wings, lifting you toward horizons where scarcity yields to abundance, isolation to communion, weariness to wonder. Jophiel's presence is a balm, soothing the raw edges of old wounds with the oil of compassion. She whispers of the allies heaven has positioned along your path, unseen sentinels who have prayed in your stead when words failed you. A colleague who sensed your unspoken struggle and lifted it in silence, a stranger whose random act of kindness was no accident but a divine dispatch, a child whose laughter pierced your gloom like a sunbeam. These are the threads weaving your safety net, the invisible chorus harmonizing with your solo of survival. And now, as the curtain rises on Act Two, these allies step forward, their roles expanding from background to forefront, co-authoring the narrative of your triumph. Breathe in the fragrance of possibility, beloved. Jophiel fans the embers of your latent gifts, those talents you dismissed as hobbies or hid from fear of failure. The divine embedded them not as ornaments but as instruments, tools for the symphony of service you are destined to conduct. Whether it's the melody of your voice healing hearts, the rhythm of your hands crafting beauty from chaos, or the harmony of your wisdom guiding lost souls, these gifts awaken now, vibrating with the frequency of fulfillment. Heaven applauds, not for perfection, but for participation, the brave yes you utter in the face of the unknown. This divine call extends beyond the personal, it ripples outward, touching lives you have yet to meet. Jophiel envisions the chain reaction, your restored joy inspiring a neighbor's courage, your overflowing provision funding a dreamer's launch, your radiant peace diffusing tension in a fractured family. You are the pebble cast into the pond of humanity, and the waves you generate will lap at shores far beyond your sight. This is the multiplier effect of miracles, where one soul's elevation lifts legions, turning solitary sparks into a bonfire of collective hope. Yet Jophiel cautions gentleness in this unfolding. The miracle blooms like a lotus in muddied waters, patient, unhurried, revealing its petals one by one. Rush it, and you risk bruising the delicate beauty, nurture it, and it expands into full splendor. So sit with the discomfort of transition, the itch of growth, knowing each twinge is a sign of life asserting itself. Heaven's timeline is impeccable, calibrated to your readiness, ensuring that when the fullness arrives, you stand not as a beggar but as a co-creator, hands open to both give and receive. As night yields to day in your inner landscape, Jophiel illuminates the constellations of your future, stars aligned in patterns of promise. See the one blazing for career ascension, its light charting courses to opportunities that resonate with your soul's song. Another twinkles for relational harmony, drawing souls whose vibrations sync with yours in symphony rather than discord. And there, the brightest, for holistic wholeness, where body, mind, and spirit converge in ecstatic unity. These are not distant galaxies but proximate beacons, guiding your vessel home to the harbor of wholeness. Jophiel's laughter, soft as summer rain, reminds you of joy's simplicity. Amid the grandeur of destiny, forget not the small sacraments, a sunset's hush, a loved one's embrace, the taste of bread still warm from the oven. These are the divine's love letters, scattered like confetti along your path, invitations to pause and partake in the feast of the present. Your miracle encompasses these two, amplifying the ordinary into the extraordinary, turning mundane moments into memories etched in eternity. In the quiet aftermath of her words, feel the divine's gaze upon you, not scrutinizing, but adoring, like a parent beholding their child's first steps. You are seen, fully and favorably, every quirk and quest a cherished part of the masterpiece. Jophiel seals this knowing with a kiss of light upon your forehead, a benediction that lingers, a talisman against doubt's return. Carry it forward, into the day's demands, the night's reflections, knowing that heaven's hand remains clasped in yours. The journey continues, beloved, with Jophiel as your steadfast guide. She does not promise a path devoid of pebbles, but one where each obstacle becomes a stepping stone, each shadow a canvas for light's artistry. Trust the unfolding, for in the divine script, every line leads to liberation. Your story, once a whisper, now roars with potential, a testament to resilience's reward. And as you step into this new dawn, remember, the best is not yet, but now, unfolding in the beauty of your becoming. But wait, the whisper deepens, Jophiel's voice layering nuance upon the foundation she has laid. She speaks of the ancestral echoes that resonate within you, voices from bloodlines long faded yet vibrant in your veins. These forebears, with their unyielding spirits, planted prayers like acorns in autumn soil, envisioning the oak you would become. Their struggles were not in vain, they were the furrows plowed for your flourishing. Jophiel reveals how heaven has honored their legacy, weaving their hopes into the fabric of your fate, ensuring that generational curses fracture under the weight of your blessings. Imagine the great-grandfather who toiled under relentless suns, his calloused hands a map of sacrifice, whispering to the stars for a descendant who would know ease. Or the grandmother whose hymns in the dim kitchen warded off despair, her melody a bridge to the divine. Jophiel says their songs now harmonize with yours, a chorus amplifying your cries into thunderous declarations. You carry their courage, their cunning, their unquenchable quest for more, and heaven activates it now, unlocking vaults of inherited wisdom that will propel you through doors once deemed impenetrable. This ancestral infusion is no abstract concept, it manifests tangibly. Perhaps in a sudden insight during a mundane task, a flash of intuition that solves a long-standing riddle. Or in the serendipitous encounter with a mentor whose words echo familial cadences, bridging past and present. Jophiel urges you to honor this lineage not with grief but with gratitude, lighting candles in your heart for those who paved the way, their lights merging with yours to form a constellation of continuity. As the layers peel back, Jophiel addresses the specters of self-sabotage that have lurked in your shadows, those inner critics born of old hurts, chanting litanies of unworthiness. She does not condemn them, instead, she bathes them in light, revealing their origins in survival, not truth. With a flick of her ethereal quill, she rewrites their scripts, transforming "not enough" into "abundantly equipped," "too late" into "divinely timed." Feel the chains loosen, the voices hush, as divine affirmation drowns out doubt's din. You are not your history's hostage but its hero, authoring amendments that heal and elevate. Jophiel then turns to the realm of creativity, that sacred spark heaven ignited at your birth. Whether you wield brush, word, or note, she fans it into flame, reminding you that art is not indulgence but invocation, a portal through which the divine flows. The miracle extends here, unblocking channels clogged by fear of judgment, inviting you to create without apology, to pour your essence onto the canvas of the world. Watch as your expressions touch souls, stirring their own latent fires, creating a ripple of renaissance that begins with your bold stroke. In the garden of relationships, Jophiel tends the blooms with care. She speaks of bonds strained by time or trial, now ripe for revival. The divine, ever the master reconciler, softens hearts and mends fences, drawing lines that once diverged back into convergence. But she also celebrates the new connections on the horizon, kindred spirits whose arrival will feel like homecoming, their presence a mirror reflecting your highest self. Nurture these with vulnerability, for in true communion lies the multiplier of joy. Jophiel's counsel on stewardship follows, a gentle reminder that abundance is not hoarded but stewarded, a river to be shared lest it stagnate. Your miracle includes the wisdom to manage it, finances flowing with purpose, time allocated to what matters, energy invested in eternal returns. Heaven equips you with discernment, turning potential pitfalls into platforms for generosity, where giving becomes the gateway to greater receiving. As the sun arcs toward its zenith in your soul's sky, Jophiel illuminates the path of self-compassion, that often overlooked virtue. She teaches that grace begins within, a daily practice of speaking kindly to the reflection in the mirror, forgiving the stumbles as a loving parent forgives a child's. This inner harmony radiates outward, magnetizing grace from others, creating a virtuous cycle of kindness that fortifies your foundation. The angel's words weave through the fabric of daily rhythms, sanctifying the ordinary. The commute becomes a mobile chapel for gratitude, the kitchen a laboratory of love where meals nourish not just bodies but bonds. Jophiel shows how these micro-miracles accumulate, building a life of macro-manifestation, where the divine infuses every hour with holy intent. Delving deeper, Jophiel addresses the ecology of your spirit, the balance of rest and pursuit. She warns against the idolatry of busyness, advocating Sabbaths of soul where recharge precedes renewal. In stillness, miracles marinate, emerging richer for the repose. Embrace this rhythm, and watch productivity soar, not from frenzy but from flow. Jophiel's vision extends to legacy, the footprints you leave for those who follow. Your miracle is a seedbed for succession, inspiring the next generation with tales of tenacity and triumph. Teach them not just survival but thriving, passing the torch of faith with stories that spark their own divine encounters. As twilight approaches in this chapter of Revelation, Jophiel circles back to the core, your identity as beloved, irreplaceable, infinitely valued. No achievement adds to this, no failure subtracts. Rest in this truth, and the miracle unfolds effortlessly, a natural extension of being rather than doing. The script continues, layer upon layer, building to a crescendo of assurance. Jophiel recounts parables from celestial lore, tales of souls like yours who teetered on despair's edge only to leap into abundance's arms. These are not fables but files in heaven's hall of faith, precedents proving your path is paved with promise. She speaks of synchronicities, those coincidences that are heaven's wink, aligning in increasing frequency as you attune. A book falls open to the perfect page, a song lyric lands like prophecy. These are Jophiel's signatures, confirming you're on course. In the arena of health, Jophiel promises holistic harmony, where vitality surges as obstacles dissolve. Not overnight, but inexorably, as lifestyle aligns with divine design, body templed in care, mind cleared of clutter, spirit soared on wings of worship. For the dreamers among you, Jophiel fans visions into ventures, providing the blueprint for manifestation, clarity of intent, action aligned with inspiration, surrender to divine timing. Your aspirations, once distant stars, now planets in your orbit, ripe for exploration. Jophiel addresses the lonely hearts, assuring that connection awaits, not in desperation but in delight. Divine romance, whether platonic or passionate, arrives when you love yourself first, becoming the magnet for mirrors of your magnificence. The angel's discourse on forgiveness frees you from resentment's prison, transforming victims into victors. Release not for their sake but yours, reclaiming energy bound in bitterness for bliss's pursuit. As the narrative swells, Jophiel invokes the elements, earth's stability grounding your gains, water's flow washing wounds, fire's passion fueling purpose, air's breath carrying prayers. Harmonize with these, and nature conspires in your favor. She encourages journaling as a sacred dialogue, pen as portal to the divine, capturing insights that illuminate your inner landscape. These pages become your personal gospel, testifying to transformation. Jophiel celebrates community, urging connection with like-minded souls, tribes where vulnerability is valorized, support systemic. In unity, miracles multiply, burdens borne collectively becoming blessings shared. For the innovators, she sparks ingenuity, divine downloads descending in dreams or daydreams, solutions to world's woes birthed from your brilliance. Step into this role, steward of solutions, heaven's hands on earth. The angel addresses adversity's aftermath, how trials transmute into testimonies, scars into stars guiding others. Your story, polished by pain, shines as beacon, beckoning the broken to belief. Jophiel's final flourishes in this segment emphasize eternity's embrace, this life a chapter in an endless epic, miracles mere previews of paradise's plenty. Live with that lens, and every moment magnifies. Yet the whisper persists, evolving, Jophiel delving into the quantum of faith, where belief bends reality, collapsing possibilities into provision. Quantum leaps await, not linear progress but exponential expansion. She speaks of aura alignment, clearing energetic entanglements, inviting high vibrational visitors, guides, angels, ancestors, into your field, their counsel catalyzing change. In the marketplace of miracles, Jophiel haggles on your behalf, negotiating favor with unseen merchants, bartering past pains for present prosperity. The deal is done, receive with rejoicing. For parents, she promises progeny protected, paths paved with prayer, their potentials unlocked by your legacy of love. Nurture them as heaven nurtures you, and generations glow. Jophiel addresses the artists of the soul, poets and prophets, urging unfiltered expression, raw and real, as conduits for collective catharsis. Your words wound and heal, heaven's poetry in motion. The angel's assurance on abundance dispels scarcity's specter, affirming supply's infinitude, your portion plentiful. Give freely, and watch the horn of plenty pour. As rhythms sync with divine dance, Jophiel teaches surrender's step, leading when you follow, twirling trials into triumphs, waltzing through woes to wonder. She illuminates intuition's inner light, that gut glow guiding greater good, trusting its tugs over logic's limits. Hone it, and horizons expand. Jophiel's ode to gratitude, gratitude's gate, key to kingdom's riches, turning lack to lavishness, complaint to celebration. In the forge of failure, she forges fortitude, each flop a file smoothing rough edges, readying for refinement's reveal. The angel advocate's adventure, divine detours delighting, discoveries in the detour, destiny in the deviation. Jophiel's vision of victory is velvet, not violent, grace-graced, enemies enfolded or evaporated, your elevation unchallenged. She sings of season's sacredness, winter's wisdom, spring's surge, summer's splendor, autumn's abundance, cycle in sync, soul serene. For seekers, she maps mysteries, unveiling veils, questions questing to quietude, answers in the asking. Jophiel's embrace of eccentricity celebrates your uniqueness, quirks as divine quirks, oddities as offerings, you as one-of-a-kind original. The whisper winds toward wonder, Jophiel's awe at creation's canvas, inviting you to co-create, colors of courage, strokes of spirit. She seals with serenity's summons, peace as power, calm as catalyst, your center unchanging amid chaos.